you for joining us, John.
Well, you're very welcome. I'm always happy to be on your show.
Well, thank you. And it's always interesting to talk to you, especially now that you have upped the ante on your bet. You famously said that you would eat a certain part of your anatomy if Bitcoin failed to get to, especially now that you failed to get to 2020, and you said that this summer, and I had you on, we talked about that briefly at the time.
Yes.
Now you have upped that to $1 million because it's rising even faster than you'd anticipate. What did you base this on? What assumptions and give us an idea of what kind of analysis you used? Was this something that you did mathematically, or is this just a gut feeling that you have?
No, I am a math major, and mathematics is my business. I'm a programmer. It was based on some very simple assumptions. There can only be 21 million Bitcoins. That's the max. 4 million of them have already been lost. So now we're down to 17 million. And we have the entire world that will be potential users. Now, when I made that prediction, I also predicted that it would be $5,000 before the end of 2017. Well, it almost peaked at $12,000 today. So yes, clearly my assumptions were way off. Now, I will not have to eat that part of my anatomy, I can assure you. I am perfectly safe at $1 million at the end of 2020. See, here's the problem. Everybody is making predictions based on the old paradigm of investment and growth, where 10% is astonishing. Well, we get 20% a day, consistently sometimes with some cryptocurrencies. Why? Because the supply is limited. We can't print anymore. Like you can print more US dollars, you can print more British pounds, you can print more Japanese yen. You cannot create any more Bitcoins, and the maximum of 21 million. Now, if you take 21 million coins, and let's say only half of the world ends up using Bitcoins, well, we've got 2.5 billion people using 21 million coins. Please just use your head. $1 million is nothing in 3 years, if I am correct. And I am correct. I don't make bets and lose them. My wife can tell you that. She's holding the phone here. So it's an easy bet. It's something I can absolutely guarantee. Now, since I said that, a bunch of people have jumped on the bandwagon, okay? Why? Because I said it, and I stand by it. And Bitcoin is accelerating in its value.
Yeah, we've got a lot of people that are saying that they expect by the end of next year, quite a few people said $40,000, $50,000. You're probably even higher than that in your estimation if it's going to get to $1 million by 2020. They're saying $40,000, $50,000 by the end of 2018 is what many people are expecting now.
No, my figure's at 78,000 by the end of 2018. However, what astonishes me is people say, we think Bitcoin is going to be 14,000 by the end of 2018. What paradigm are they using? They are using the old paradigm where you do have bubbles, where things do pop, where you do have corrections. The word correction cannot be applied to Bitcoin. That's from an old paradigm.
Well, I want to talk to you about some of the stuff that is coming out. There's a couple of things that I want to hit with you. One of them is as somebody who is who's been there from the beginning in terms of cybersecurity. I want to talk to you about just tips that you would tell people in terms of how to protect themselves against cyber theft. We'll get to that in a moment. But the other part of this, besides the limited number of coins that are there, that are fixed in this algorithm, is the fact that it is being pushed back against by many governments. We now have the UK saying we're going to come in with a regulatory crackdown. We've already seen it in China. You're in Asia as well. You were there, and we saw what happened with that. Many different ways that you have central banks and governments trying to attack. Many people believe that there was a direct denial of service launched against, say, Coinbase and their trading site last week that caused that flash crash from about 11,000 down to 8,500, but then it recovered. And we've seen the same type of thing coming from Jamie Dimon and the world's biggest hedge fund manager, both attacking Bitcoin. That happened just before I talked to you the last time, and that had taken Bitcoin down from $4,000 to $3,000, but then it recovered and lost about a quarter of its value, but then it recovered in just a few days. So we got these attacks coming from the central bankers, from the investors, from the regular banking industry, as well as governments coming in to try to regulate this. But then still in China, it's still going strong. People don't realize how strong it is in Asia. That's why you're in Asia, right? And I know you got a cold. And thank you for joining us. We were going to have you on Friday, and you were very sick with the flu. So I really appreciate you coming on today.
So here's the problem. It does not matter whether governments like Bitcoin or not, whether banks like Bitcoin or not. And I was on with Jamie Dimon when he was saying Bitcoin was a fraud. Well, it's clearly not. Jamie Dimon is head of America's largest bank. Obviously, he's frightened. All banks are frightened. In 5 years' time, we will have no banks because everybody with a Bitcoin wallet will be its own bank. I can do wire transfers or the equivalent. I can do the equivalent of writing checks. Everything that a bank can do, my wallet can do. And this is the problem. Banks are looking at coin exchanges now. I have developed, in conjunction with BitIndia in India, a wallet which is distributed. You cannot shut it down.
Hang on, we got to take a quick break, and we're going to be right back to you. And I want to talk about the wallets and how these people are trying to attack us. And of course, they came after Ross Ulbricht. That was one of the key things that they came after him for, was because he was using Bitcoin. In the early days, very early adopter of it, they saw that as a threat. They do see it as a threat. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back. I'm David Knight, and we're talking to John McAfee specifically about Bitcoin. Because John McAfee is a pioneer now and has been for a while in cyber currencies as well as in Bitcoin mining. He was a pioneer decades ago in terms of virus protection software. So I want to talk to John about what is going on. Of course, we talked in the last segment about his prediction of Bitcoin increasing, why he was confident of that. Says he had come about that by a mathematical analysis, not just a gut feeling. And when we look, John, at what's happening here, this is something that is a global phenomenon. You're in Asia right now because that's really where the demand is the biggest. People don't realize that. We don't really focus too much on news outside the U.S., but last week, it was trading up about $1,000 or so higher in South Korea and Japan. It was up over 12,000 at that point. And people don't realize that about 74% of the global Bitcoin trades are from South Korea and Japan, especially in Japan. They're using it quite a bit in terms of, we've now got you on the phone. Let's see, in terms of quite a bit in terms of actually purchasing stuff that's a threat to the central banks. And that's why there are so many efforts to try to undermine it. Go ahead.
Yeah, so in September, I was supposed to give a talk in Beijing at BitCan, one of the largest Bitcoin conferences. The week before, China shut down the exchanges and made ICOs illegal, which was the topic of my talk. Had I shown up, I would have been arrested. The entire conference was moved to Hong Kong. Oddly enough, every keynote speaker that was to speak at that conference showed up in Hong Kong, and almost everybody who had registered. That shows the dedication. But let me get back to what we were discussing earlier. There's nothing that governments can do to shut down Bitcoin. Now, they could stop me from showing up in Beijing. I'm a human being. They could stop me at the airport and arrest me. They cannot stop and did not stop trading in Bitcoin or any other cryptocurrency. It is impossible for a government to stop a distributed system like Bitcoin. And now
that's right. It actually went up, didn't it, in terms of the amount of Chinese yen buying a Bitcoin? It went up from 5% to, I think, to 20%. Then it went back down to like 13%. But it actually is still 2 or 3 times what it was before they prohibited it.
What it was before. So prohibition requires enforcement. How do you enforce people not using Bitcoin? You would have to have an agent for every citizen within your country. They would have to come into your house and monitor your computer usage 24 hours a day. It is not possible. You cannot enforce any of these bans. And this is what governments do not understand. Banks are more terrified than governments. Governments are going to lose revenue if they're taxing income. Banks are going to lose their entire business because a wallet is a bank. End of story.
So do you see the banks trying to offer, and this is what a lot of people talk about, we see Venezuela is coming out and saying that they're going to offer a cryptocurrency. Interesting enough, because in Venezuela, they're one of these states like Zimbabwe and others where people are trying to flee the country with their capital. That's been one of the things that's so attractive about something like Bitcoin. And so now they're trying to come out and say, we're going to run a cryptocurrency for people. I think that's too little too late for Venezuela. But other countries have talked about going into competition with Bitcoin, like China and Russia as well.
Yes. But you cannot, because these cryptocurrencies that governments are offering are centralized. It's just like things are now. They have central control. They can control the price. They can control the fluctuations. They can control interest rates. No, Bitcoin is not centralized. It belongs to the people. It has taken power away from centralized governments and banks and given that power to the people. When a government issues its own cryptocurrency, they're missing the point. They're simply taking that power back. Are you going to accept that? I'm not. Go ahead and issue a cryptocurrency. America, England. I don't care. I'm not going to use it. I'm going to continue to use Bitcoin.
That's right. And then when you look at efforts like China and now being reported, UK, as a matter of fact, last week, some reporter pitched out a question to President Trump. What about Bitcoin? Well, we got Homeland Security looking into it. If China, if the United States, if UK try to put restrictions on people taking money in and out, we still have places like Japan that are going to, or Switzerland, that are going to run into this and say, embrace it, and people will still be able to get their money in and out through those currencies, wouldn't they? If they wanted to.
Absolutely. And again, the exchanges are now moving to distributed wallets. There is no more central exchange in the new paradigm of Bitcoin. Exchanges, you will be part of a distributed exchange. If someone shuts you down, it's not going to shut the exchange down because the exchange is spread across millions of nodes, millions of users, millions of wallets. So there's nothing technologically, legally, legislatively that can be done to stop or even impede the growth of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies.
Now, you're talking about a distributed wallet. That's something that many of us don't know about, including myself. Tell us a little bit about a distributed wallet and how does that compare to, like, say, a hardware wallet where the keys and everything reside on a separate device?
When I say distributed, I mean wallets that are including a distributed exchange. Instead of having an exchange which is located in one country with massive servers, that exchange is now distributed among millions of users of the cryptocurrency. So you cannot take it down. The exchange process itself, if you want to exchange Bitcoin for Ethereum, there is no central exchange. It's done with everybody's wallets communicating simultaneously. It cannot be taken down. It cannot be located. It does not exist in any one location. It is an idea made manifest through millions of people accepting and embracing the idea. So when that happens, give up government. End of story. War over. People won. Government lost.
That's a great idea. Now, in the past, you've talked about the necessity, and we've heard it as well from Kim.com, the necessity